So, although seemingly these two portions in Leviticus is really about the earth, letting it lie fallow, but Judaism has such depth that when you really read the entire portions, which I would advise you to do, they're not too long. There are so many laws in one portion. For example, Jennifer, it also says that it goes into the fact that you are not allowed to plough, and if you do plough the earth in a sabbatical year or a jubilee or the 49th year, then you are breaking many other commandments as well. For example, if you do plough the land, in that year you're not allowed to plough it, you're probably also tethering an ox and a donkey together, and that's against our law because it's cruel to the animals. So everything has a myriad of other laws underneath it. It's quite amazing. And let me see. All right, and then remember the first Bahar was really devoted to also how you treat your fellow Jew, your family, your Jewish nation in that year. And it says here, you know, for example, a Jew won't work or shouldn't work or doesn't want to work or play football or baseball on Shabbat, right? A religious Jew. There are other Jews who do. Nothing wrong with it. That's their choice. But it says here, the Mishnah taught us that we encourage the work of non-Jews in the sabbatical year because they're not bound by our laws. But not that of Jews. But then this is so beautiful. Please listen to this. Although a non-Jew works in the sabbatical year, right, not on our land, but perhaps on their own or others. But then, although we say the Jew, you mustn't work on Shabbat, but then they said here, we inquire about the non-Jews' well-being. We don't just say, oh, well, they can work, I'm not. We say, we hope you'll be well, we pray for your health. We inquire about their well-being for peace. You've got to see that our Torah is an incredible, and many think the first step towards democracy, not the Greeks, and I'll share that with you if you want, but it's an incredible practical guide to the world, not only the world surviving, but humanity surviving and treating each other with respect. This I couldn't resist sharing with you, and all of this is had we spent 3 to 5 hours reading both portions. So, the great rabbis have discussed this I don't say ad nauseum because it's ad wonder. And Rabbi asked Isaac, who lived many years ago, whether one could find a mightier person than one whose fields are untilled, see one's vineyard untilled, doing nothing, and yet pays taxes and does not complain. So he still pays his taxes because remember they were living in other lands under other people, Babylonian times and other times, right? So even though they left their lands not tilled and weren't earning money, they still paid their taxes. They weren't paying the victims. It's an extraordinary compendium of practical laws of our behavior. That's all it means to be holy, not to meditate on a cabbage leaf. And and this Rabbi Isaac of blessed memory goes on to say, regarding observance in the sabbatical year, at the same time you regard all the other laws you were told. You pay your taxes. You give to Caesar's that which is Caesar's. You look after, you don't do bad things, because if you break it, you're going to break 100 other commandments as well. Okay. And then, of course, there's always Hillel, who takes the compassionate view. And he says, this is lovely. Be careful of your own thoughts and your own words, because you can, and I'm not talking about Lashon Hora here, only saying bad. It's actually, let me read it to you, it is complicated, but I'll just share a few with you. Hillel said, the Mishnah told that when Hillel the elder, and there was a son too, beware lest there be in your mind a base thought, he instituted a prosbul, P-R-O-Z-B-U-L, a court, with a prosbul of something that cannot be cancelled in the sabbatical year. And this is what I love about Judaism. When rabbis see that an injustice will be done because people were using the sabbatical year as an excuse, they cancelled it for that excuse and said, no, you can do it. It is the same thing as in ancient times, when your wife's sister's husband died, you had to marry her. The rabbis cancelled that. Some great rabbis who said they had the power cancelled that in terms of the era in which they are living. Judaism can only survive if the laws are adapted to the era in which we live, which Hillel did, which is why progressive religious Judaism tends to follow him. But the ultra-Orthodox nationalists, for example, in our Israel government today that is splitting our Jewish nation, they followed Shammai, who said, no, you've got to stick to the law no matter what. And of course, it's a combination of both. But here, so this prosbul, I thought this was lovely, taught, for example, that any loan made with a prosbul is not cancelled in the sabbatical year. So, if a loan is made, right, and the person says to you, and you agree that when they are in really the most awful circumstances, no matter what, you will pay it back, you can't then have a base thought and say, I'm not going to pay it back, because it's the sabbatical year. Hillel changed it. So, I mean, our religion is extraordinary. So, the Mishnah recounted that a prosbul would provide, if it was in the original statement of loan, that no matter what, I'll pay it back when you need it. I turn over to you, so-and-so, judge of such and such, that any debt I may have, I shall collect it whenever I desire. So if you agreed to that, then Hillel changed the law for that. So it's very much like a contract we would have today. So, and okay, let me conclude with this. The Mishnah tells us, and this is based mainly on Hillel, to which we draw great strength, but we do also respect Shammai, or we wouldn't be sitting here every Shabbat. But every Jew takes his own version of Hillel, compassion, and Shammai, the laws. That's our Jewish nation. And we'll see that that has led also to the conflict today in Israel. So we've read that, and let me now just conclude here. All right, so in a way, Shabbat mirrors the sabbatical and the Jubilee year. And it's not only, we're not talking only about the land, we're talking about 100 other actions during that time that have laws as well. So, and here. We also, I just want to mention one other thing which I didn't read, which is terribly important. It also goes into the fact that people have to buy and sell according to Torah laws. Business has to be done according to Torah laws, whether it's in a sabbatical year or on a Shabbat or any other time. You have to buy and sell according. You may not overcharge or underpay for any article. If you do that, you are breaking the law 100 times in a sabbatical year where you're supposed to be good. Not to insult or harm anybody with words. Not to sell the land in Israel, interesting, indefinitely. And to carry out the laws of sold family properties. So just as the way today we have laws where you can sell your property to someone else, Mark, they had all different laws. But the laws for the houses within a walled city were completely different to the laws in the country where they produced the food and looked after the land. Completely different. So, to carry out the laws of houses in the walled city, and everything goes into detail, not to sell the fields, they shall remain the Levites, etc., not to lend with interest, not to have a Hebrew servant do menial slave labor, not to sell a Hebrew servant as a slave. This is Bahar, where we're worried about the Jews. And it says, not to allow a non-Jew to work a Hebrew servant oppressively, etc., etc. But the laws go to everything, not only for us, but how we treat the non-Jew as an example. And just let me quickly finish, because we are on a timeline today with something that's terribly important. The conflict in Israel today is between the extreme Shemai extremists who don't want to accept any other practice of Judaism. They don't accept pluralism. They don't accept the law of return. They don't accept anything but extremism of such a kind that is totally against our Torah. Because, as you know, the great Sanhedrin said, who's right? They're both right. Compromise, find a middle. Anyway, there's something that Rabbi Solzhenitsyn called the solution, and I'll read it very quickly by Rabbi Goldman. He points out that the conflict between secular and religious Israelis, and between secular, which is the majority of Israelis, and religious fanatics. There's the modern Orthodox, there's progressive, there's conservative, there's liberal, there's 100 different streams. But the majority in Israel are secular, and this fight had to come. He said it's no good with soft appeals to brotherhood and shared destiny. They ain't going to listen to the words of the Torah. And he says, I stand with those who believe there is no Israel without Torah. Of course not, because it's the laws of decency and democracy. But there is no Israel without a secular Israel. What Leibovitz called the first Israel of the Ashkenazi who founded the states, as well as 100,000 scientists and technicians who immigrated from the former Soviet Union. So, to cut a long story short, because we want to finish by 12:15 or 12:30 the latest, what they are saying is that secular Judaism or scientific genius of Israel and religion, there always seems to be a fight between, but there shouldn't be. All the Nobel, of the 50 Jews awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics, not one was Shomrei Shabbat. Now, are we going to say they're bad Jews? No, that's their choice. They've been a light unto the nations. Are we going to say that someone who is Shomrei Shabbat is bad? No, he's good too. He's wonderful. But it's in Judaism, in true Judaism, in Torah, true language, both are needed. We need all the different streams. It is the extremists on both sides who would destroy each other and not negotiate. So, I thought this was amazing. It is impossible to account for the disproportionate success of Jewish scientists, mathematicians, musicians, and philosophers without referring to a unique Jewish sensibility. Yes, they might not be like us, they might not be Shomrei Shabbat, they might not be here, they might not go to shul, but they have the Torah, the laws of decency and goodness in the very marrow of their bones. It is a Jewish sensibility. The mutual antagonism between the worlds of Jewish observance, this is what we're seeing in Israel today, and secular accomplishments is deeply ingrained, but it is not necessary and it's not right. This is Rabbi Rav Soloveitchik's Torah. I mean, gosh, he was in the early 1900s and he said it's not right. He was actually the head of modern Orthodox, and he led to that you could have secular study, watch TV and be religious, which the extreme don't do. So let us conclude that even if secular and religious Israel don't merge, the two sides at least should be capable of acknowledging that both are indispensable to Jewish survival, provided they can find a common language in which to communicate with each other. And may I conclude by saying, may Rav, this wonderful Rabbi Soloveitchik's, what he called his Torah, may his words become a reality in our mind, and may the extremists that we see today controlling the government of Israel be softened, be changed, not with words, but by the incredible silent protests. And forgive me going into this, but this is very much part of what we're reading today. By the silent protests of 500,000 people every single night, 200,000 to 500,000, secular, modern Orthodox, and the entire progressive religious stream of Judaism openly declared they are part of the process, silently, peaceful, no violence. And with that peaceful protest, we raise our voices worldwide to bring the peace, to bring the respect for each other, the love of all God's humanity, all the different religions, different ethnicities. And may this be God's will. Shabbat Shalom.